Hey everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Taking two napkins and turning them into an art piece. Well, you know what? It's easier than you think. Come join me and let me give you the steps. This beautiful napkin comes from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. It's called Poppy. I loved it as soon as I got it. The bright, vibrant colors. I just love it. And I thought it would make a perfect border on a page. So here I'm prepping the napkin. I'm just cutting it apart and I'm going to put it right along the bottom of my art journal page. My art journal page, it's mixed media paper and it measures 8.5 by 11. Now to prepare it, I am going to water cut off the excess napkin. I like this because I get a deckled edge, which more easily disappears into my background, removes the bulk that I don't want, and allows me to edit out some of the elements that are in the napkin that I don't want, like that one little frond there. Loving the look of this. I'm ready to glue this down, and I am using Fluid Matte Medium. I use the Liquitex brand. I always used it and I'm really happy with what it does for me. I glue one half down and then I glue the other half and then I seal my napkin, turn it all into a non-porous surface with a coat of the Fluid Matte Medium on top. Once that's completely dry, I'm just cutting off the excess. Now this page was raw paper. I did not gesso it yet because I'm going to be adding some gesso at this point here. To make those edges disappear and to make my background, the application of paint, a little easier, I'm going to gesso my background. So I'm just using economy brand gesso and I'm going to kind of glob it on a little bit heavier right next to where the napkin is. And this just makes it a little bit more seamless. You don't really see where the napkin ends and the paper begins. So here I'm just using a small filbert brush and my big brush to put gesso on the rest of the page. Now my plan is to be overpainting the poppies. I am going to add more color to it, change the color, tweak the color down the road. If you've seen my videos, you know that I love overpainting on top of napkins, turning it into something that looks more hand painted than glued on. Just adding a little bit of gesso down there. Now this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop is called Circles Nested. And I wanted to add some texture to my background. So I'm using TCW's modeling paste. I'm applying it, putting it on a key card here, and then I'm just going to swoop it across. I'm not looking for perfect stenciling. I just want to create movement and add some texture and pattern to my background. As of yet, I have not decided what color I'm going to do on my background. So I just do the steps that I know for sure what I'm doing. It's really hard to tell the stenciling or the to see the modeling paste through here. Now, did you know that if you get modeling paste where you don't want, you can take a palette knife and scrape it off? Even when it's dry, you can. So if it goes terribly wrong, or you get somewhere you don't like it, you can scrape it off. I chose this stencil because it just kind of resembled the centers of the poppies, the round centers of the poppies. I like elements, different elements to kind of work together. So there you can see the modeling paste. So you want to make sure you give that time to dry. You can use a heat tool. And then we're going to get ready to do the next part. Now, I wasn't sure, so I did some thinking and I decided I'm going to grab another napkin. This one is called My Angel. It has the angel looking two ways. Love that. Gives you options. I rough cut one of each out, and that's allowing me to addition it. Now, I have some sentiments from Through the Garden Gate. This one, where flowers bloom, angels sing. So I'm thinking that would work with what I've got going on. And this one is from Winged Wonders. It says, leave room in the garden for the angels to dance. So either one would work theme wise, but I like the shape and size and scope of this one better. So now I'm taking off the excess plies from my angel and I'm saving that. I'm going to use that coming down the road. And I'm going to have this angel here. But if I glued it down, you would see the poppies coming through her dress. And you would see whatever color I put in the background on her face and her wings. And I don't want that. So I'm just gluing this down on a piece of scrap copy paper, gluing it down with fluid matte medium, coat on top to seal it. Because again, I'm going to overpaint. So now I guess I can't put it off any longer. I'm going to do the background. And I'm using Hooker's Green and bright yellow from the Artist Loft and make this mottled background. I think that works well. She's got a little green on her, and that green and yellow is next to the poppies. And it's something that I don't typically do. So it was a bit of a challenge, a bit of out of my comfort zone. But if you never go out of your comfort zone, you don't learn things. So I'm just getting some of the Hooker's Green and I'm going to apply these colors with maybe a little bit of white gesso to the background. I'm mixing them because I know yellow and green are just going to make a lighter shade of yellow and green. And I'm just filling in the background. And you can see where that dark green catches the texture, that pattern comes out, which is why I love using modeling paste. Now I realize the white parts down in the where the poppy napkin is kind of look out of place now. If I colorize the background for the top, I need to go in there. So that's what you see me doing. Didn't realize that going in, but very quickly caught on to what I had to do. An easy fix. So here I'm just adding a little bit of white gesso to make it a little softer in and amongst the flowers because I really want the flowers to be the most focal. I'm just adding a little bit of green, just playing with the colors till I get it exactly how I like it. So now that the girl is dry, the angel is dry, I am cutting her out. And I'm doing, as good a job as I can, but I'm not trying to be so perfect. I have always collected angels and I absolutely love this angel. And I apologize. You're probably going to see me create with this angel again. She is so perfect. So I'm thinking I'm going to put her there, standing on the ground. I may have shifted the napkin a little bit if I knew I was going to put her there, but you know what? Sometimes you don't know till you know. Testing out the sentiment. And now I'm using the Crafters Workshop gel medium instead of my fluid medium because I've got copy paper and napkin. We've got multiple layers. I just like to use gel medium best. Fluid medium will work. It just might take a little while for it to perfectly adhere. And again, I sealed it on top. Once dry, now I'm going to colorize. The purple ones, dioxazine purple and deep violet, some quinacridone magenta, and some alizarin crimson. Those are the colors that work. And this time I am going to water them down or mix them with a little bit of white gesso to overpaint on the flowers. So here I'm just putting some gesso, really just globbing it on. I'm using a filbert brush. I also tend to use a round brush. Now, I left a lot of this in. I do speed it up in a bit, but I wanted to show you how I'm doing it. And I'm really trying hard not to overthink it. And I find that is the recommendation I'd get with overpainting. If you're unsure, leave out the gesso part and do thin the acrylic paint and give it a wash of color. That'll just brighten the colors and make your focal point really stand out, because sometimes, depending on the background that you have, the focal image needs that little extra boost. When you add gesso or thicker paint, then it's going to look very painterly and it's going to look like it is hand painted. And I'm just pushing the brush strokes. Now, a lot of napkins are very watercolory, they're very abstract florals. They are perfect for overpainting. So I'm just going the color, the poppies that are more alizarin crimson, and then I'm mixing some of those colors as well. So it's not necessarily pure. I'm taking a little bit of the deep purple, deep violet, and putting it where the quinacridone magenta is, just dropping in that little extra bit of color. I'm mixing the quinacridone magenta and the alizarin crimson. Then I'm mixing all those colors with a little bit of gesso and getting different tones of the same color. Remember, the person who sees this at the end doesn't isn't going to compare it to the original, because they're not going to have the original there. They're going to only know your version of it. Now, I must say, this art journal page, I love so much. It turned out beyond what I wanted it to. So this is something that I would then do on a canvas. And that's one of the reasons I do my art journal. It is the no fear way of experimenting, of trying things out. And then if it turns out that I love it and I think it might be something that I could do on a canvas, then I can do that on a cradle board, on a canvas. Um, And I've already worked out some of the bugs and figured out what works or what doesn't work. It also, I've used it because people commission me to paint things for them. They can go through my art journal and see what I have, and it gives them an idea of what kind of things I can do. And, there's a conversation about color schemes. So it works as a portfolio, it works as my playground, my experimentation. That's why I art journal. So here I'm just adding a bit of that deep violet on top, tweaking the colors, changing the colors, making it just that little bit more my own. Now I glued the girl down before because I didn't want to have to paint the flowers that I was just going to cover up. But it might have been easier to do that than trying to paint around her dress. So whichever works better for you or makes more sense for you, that's what you should do. So I've even added some petals here. I've elongated some of the petals. I've changed the color of some of them. Then I grab the hooker's green and a little bit of brown in there, and I'm painting the foliage part, the green part that, when I painted the background, some of that foliage got pushed right back, it got covered up. So now I'm just bringing it out. I can still see where it is, and I'm just painting on top. So I like to use a small round brush or a liner brush for this stage. And if one color doesn't work, then come back with another color and drop it in. I find when you use more than one color, it tends to just look better. I'm unsure at this point in time if I'm going to do anything more with the background. Here I'm dotting some of the green, some of the yellow and white gesso. She has this crown on her head, or wreath, I guess, on her head. Then I got brave and I decided to overpaint her dress. I'm just using this small filbert brush and just kind of globbing on the paint. So there's a lot of texture that I'm adding, and I'm elongating the dress a little bit. And then I'm painting the feathers in the same way. And it really worked out well on this. And since I have multiples of this napkin, because I love the angels so much, I will be perfecting this skill. If you're unsure, let it dry, then you can come back and do more. And I'm using some brown and black, and I'm using my liner brush to add her hair. Now I decided, oh, time to work on that background. So I grabbed this stamp. This is from the Songs of the Sea from Stamperia. And I'm putting those extra plies, I'm putting it over top my angel because I don't want any stamping on her. And I'm using green acrylic paint. And I think I should have used black here or brown because I end up having a lot of green and I think it was just too much. I needed contrast, which I filled in a minute, but I think now would have been the time to do it. So if I was doing this, as I said, on a canvas or canvas board, I would maybe put a little bit of blue into the background, change it up. Do you leave it this color? So now I'm taking a makeup sponge with some of that green and I'm rubbing it ever so lightly over top of the texture, the modeling paste, and that's bringing out the pattern that was created with that modeling paste. It brings out the texture. And then I take a little bit of brown here because I'm thinking, okay, I've got this, it's too one tone, the green and the yellow. It's too much the same. I need to grunge it up just a bit, maybe add a little contrast. So I'm using brown here and just again, ever so lightly going on top of this, just adding another detail. And I like the brown there, so I grab my script stamp and I'm stamping with the dark brown. And I wash my stamps whenever I use acrylic paint with them. Then I grab this bubble stamp that I had and I'm stamping with black. I still need more contrast and I really like these little bubbles. It ties in with the stenciling we did with the modeling paste, ties in with the circles of the center of the poppies. So I end up adding a lot of different layers to that background. And I like the texture paste, the modeling paste, the pattern. It just makes your eye travel across the page. It makes for an interesting background. Now I'm taking black acrylic paint in my angle brush and I'm adding some shading on the dress, on the wings, and on the flowers. And I'm just building on the shading that was already there in the original art. You don't have to know, you just have to follow. And these, like I said, shading on the poppies themselves, making them stand out just that little bit more. The vibrancy of these colors, that the adding the color, it just really made these poppies pop. Now I'm edging the page with the same shading technique, framing my page, covering up the girl, splattering with a bit of that quinacridone magenta and deep violet, just to bring a little bit of that flower color everywhere else. And then, well, I got to splatter with gold too. The gold on the poppies looks amazing in real life. Now, time to put the sentiment. I decided that there's too much white on it, so I'm just going to cut a little closer to the words to eliminate some of that white. I didn't want the sentiment to overtake the focal image. And in fact, this would be one case where maybe I wouldn't put a sentiment on there. And if I did it on a canvas, I don't know that I would. Here I'm just bubble cutting around the script stamp. And I just glued that down with my fluid matte medium. And there we have the finished page. Look at all those layers, all that interest. I love it, and I hope you do too. It's not hard. Follow the steps, use what you have, give it a try. And there are the two napkins, my angel and Poppy. Now go and turn your napkins into beautiful art. Until next time, go get creative.